Greetings. I am Monster D. Do you like horror films? Do you have young children you wish to expose to horror films, but not with anything too intense just yet? Yet you still want to show them something that has some teeth to it? Well, I have just a suggestion for you. I wish to talk about one of my favorite film franchises. Yes, I am very well known for talking about giant monsters, but today I'm going to talk about creatures that are quite a bit smaller. That is right. Today I'm going to talk about the Critters franchise. I have always personally seen the Critters movies as a sort of gateway into the whole horror genre. In fact, when I first came across these movies, I was quite a young child myself. Yes, I have fond memories of watching these movies, actually seeing some of the latter ones come out for the first time in salivating anticipation. Why, I remember watching these movies with a good neighbor friend of mine, younger than myself still, and more to the point, he had a younger brother who was young enough to still be in diapers, and even that little child was entertained by the Critters movies, to the point that he would actually, on the sides while we were watching, stand up and try to imitate the Critters and the sounds they would make. Kikakiak! I think one of the appealing things about Critters, at least to myself, stems from the design of the creatures themselves. They are very simple, kind of rudimentary. They seem almost familiar, like an animal or a creature you might have seen, which the series pokes a lot of fun at itself. Porcupines, hedgehogs, piranha, all of that sort of thing. Yet the creatures still have their own unique aesthetic. They really don't look like any other creature directly. This is in part due to a very talented group of artists. The actual creature creators and I guess operators are actually all one big happy family known as the Kyotos. The series of brothers and other family members who all pitched in and helped one another to create such lovely little devils. The stories, for the most part, are very simple and easy to pick up and understand. Perhaps they are not as complex as some of you might like movies to be. They lack any intense plot twists or unexpected things, for the most part. The stories are generally run-of-the-mill, but for a younger audience, I think that actually helps. You won't be too bewildered. You'll just be able to sit back and enjoy the spectacle, be slightly scared, and also find yourself chuckling and laughing quite a bit. This whole series has a slew of interesting and memorable characters. One of the main characters, one of the recurring characters throughout the entire series, is Charlie McFadden, the former town alcoholic turned bounty hunter with just a face that you just can't help but to feel a certain level of empathy for. Well, there is Ugg, the bounty hunter with a penchant for 80s rockers. The first film found another way into my heart by pounding into your head this sort of 80s metal song that I believe was inspired heavily by Dio and his stylings. Maybe not quite that high in quality, but they tried with what they had. It might be easy to look at the Critters as mere Gremlins ripoffs. While I do love the Gremlins films, and perhaps the Gremlins are sort of the top tier in all the tiny creature infestation movies, I would say Critters is just barely below them, having quite a bit of its own charm and quality. If, to put it in metal terms, if Gremlins is Iron Maiden, then perhaps Critters is Saxon. Now, Saxon happens to be one of my favorite British bands of all time, but of course everyone knows who Iron Maiden is, while everyone in metal knows who Saxon is. They're both legendary bands. One is simply more popularly and publicly displayed and distributed than the other, but still both amazing. And Critters goes out of its way to have its own fairly interesting and somewhat rich mythology. I mean, the creatures come from space, and these movies waste no time delving into other alien species of varying kinds, of varying levels of intellect. Yes, the bounty hunters themselves, add to the mythology. Perhaps you could look at them as also a bit of a Terminator ripoff or homage, however you want to put that. But they certainly add another layer and level to the intrigue that is the Critters. For whenever you have Critters, inevitably, the bounty hunters are not far behind. Critters is also more prolific than Gremlins. To this day, to the moment of me recording this, Gremlins still only has 2 movies, whereas Critters has released 4 movies. This very year, there has already been a Critters miniseries on Shudder, and there is a brand new, I suppose, direct-to-TV and or video Critters movie, Critters Attack, on the way. Yes, it seems that this is truly the year of the Critter. Gremlins, where are you? What are you doing? I think it's time to step up your game. If you're going to show these movies to children, in the case of any movie, I definitely say this is a great chance to really exercise your parental guidance. Put that PG or that PG-13 to work. That is, I would highly recommend watching one of these movies, any of these movies, yourself, alone for the first time, and then deciding whether or not you want to introduce children to them. However, I will give you a bit of a clear recommendation for the children, especially if you have any of the video releases. I would say the first Critters and Critters 3 are probably the most child-friendly. I would say that they both are in around about a PG-13 level, maybe an 80s PG, give or take. I mean, there are some attacks here and there, some blood, nothing too outlandishly garish or gory. Not a lot of particularly harsh language or anything like that. Actually, out of all the movies, for some odd reason, I think Critters 3 might just be my personal favorite, just because it's almost saccharine for a horror movie. It's almost sweet in a way. I mean, its central characters are this just sort of quaint, family with his father and 2 young children and, an apartment building full of quirky neighbors. Starting with Critters 3 would probably be a really good place to go. In fact, if you start out with Critters 3, and I mean this for the young ones, one cool thing about that is early on in the film, it actually has its own sort of montage of clips from the previous 2 films, so it catches you up to speed pretty quickly. and the kids can always go back and watch the other ones later when they're older. I will say that Critters 2 is probably the most adult or perhaps intense out of all of them. There's just a little bit more violence and a few other what some might call scandalous scenes. Critters 4. Critters 4. Actually, Critters 4 probably has about the darkest tone out of the original 4 movies. It's a little more serious. A lot of people pan it for being not as high quality anyway. I mean, if you and your family become Critters buffs, I suppose it's one of those things that you'll have to watch eventually. But yes, if you're watching these movies intending with children, with your family for the first time, Critters 1 and then perhaps even just Critters 3 to start out with would be my recommendation. I bring up this whole subject about the critters and watching them with your children really to hit something on the head, going back to the whole parental guidance thing. I do like the idea of taking these opportunities to not just watch and be entertained by these things with your children, but to actually converse with them. In these cases, they may come across things that are a little bit above their head, or are a little bit scary for them, or things they don't understand, or things that almost ride that line as being too much for them. But the cool thing about that is if you're right there watching it with them, you get to talk to them about it. You get to talk to them about what really goes on in the movie. I recommend taking the opportunity to look up some information and talk to the children about Hollywood special effects, to look up who the Kyoto brothers are and how inspiring it is that this family created these monstrosities. I think it would be a good idea to talk to them about other movies that these filmmakers made, because there's actually a long history of children's films, among the directors and some of the other filmmakers involved here. I think it's good to have those discussions with children to get them thinking about the differences between reality and fantasy and what can and cannot happen. Eventually they get the idea that, okay, these things are puppets. They're not really that dangerous. I like the idea of eliminating, certain fears and scares, from youth and people in general, to help alleviate their minds, because the real world, of course, has enough scary things of its own. I think it's good to face these sort of made-up scares, have a few jumps, and then push them out and move on and become perhaps a slightly stronger person because of it. So, if you're looking for a perfect Friday night popcorn flick to watch with the whole family, and you don't know what else to go through, you don't want to watch another Goosebumps sequel, you don't want something too kiddie to bore yourself to tears, but you don't want something too garish, I do recommend the Critters movies. And in particular, for a family setting, I would say out of the original 4, Critters 3 is the best option there. Perhaps not the best film out of all of them, but the most well-rounded for a family audience. Yes. As for the new Critters mini-series on Shudder, Critters the New Binge, I would say that series is best left for when your children get maybe a little more in that tween-teen age. Well, perhaps I should say they should be closer to the age of the children in the movie. I believe they're younger high school students, or they're supposed to be. The new series, how should I put it? It is a mishmash of quality. Oddly enough, I feel like the puppetry of the critters in this new series is perhaps a little lower than in really any of the old installments. Actually, a lot of it is very TV budget. Even something like the new Bounty Hunters transformation, some of the digital effects, very, very TV budget. But the good thing about it is there are several sort of 10-minute chunks of what is ultimately one big hour or so long story. So it's easy to digest. It doesn't take too long. It's not overly harmful, although, yeah, there are a few things in there you might not quite be ready to explain to your children yet. And actually, there are some things in there that I'm not sure I'm ready to have explained to me yet. If you do watch it on Shudder, then you will know what I mean. The good news is you're already on Shudder, and there are many, many other really excellent movies to view there. Oh, but also, while there, you get this oddly sort of muted Gilbert Gottfried just sort of wandering around in the background scenes. He adds this sort of tepidly funny charm to the little mini-series. As for the new Critters Attack movie coming out, I am personally excited about this one, as among the reasons being that it brings back classic series actor Dee Wallace, who played the mother in the very first Critters. And Dee Wallace, let me tell you, there really isn't an actress quite in the same classic vein as her. I mean, you talk about Scream Queens. No, she did more than Scream. In horror situations, she had down pat this kind of classic panic face and voice. It really resonated and it worked. So I'm excited to see her back, although I have a feeling she might be playing a more advanced role, perhaps one that will be to Sarah Connor what the Bounty Hunters were to the Terminators. Something to that effect. But in any case, I am looking forward to the new Critters Attack. So when that comes out, I might as well just say it now. Yes, I will go ahead and do a review of that movie. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it comes across as a tasty morsel for you. Until next time, I am Monster D saying, stay monstrous, Monster D.